The wind moaned a mournful dirge across the plains. A chill gripped the air, a harbinger of the coming storm. The sun, a dying ember in the west, cast long, ominous shadows. Fear, thick and suffocating, clung to the hearts of men. For weeks the rumors had spread like wildfire, carried on the backs of exhausted messengers. The empire, vast and terrible in its might, marched upon the kingdom of Eldoria. Their greed, insatiable. Their hunger for conquest, a ravenous beast. King Alaric stood upon the ramparts of his fortress, his gaze fixed upon the horizon. The last rays of the sun glinted off his silvered armor, a beacon of defiance in the gathering gloom. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that this night would be painted red with the blood of heroes. The first sign of the enemy came not from the ground but from the sky. A dark, undulating mass blotted out the last vestiges of light. Pegasus riders, their winged steeds nightmares-given form, descended upon the plains, their screams echoing like the cries of damned souls. Behind them the ground trembled. War elephants, their hides adorned with the symbols of war, trumpeted their fury. Each step was an earthquake, each breath a plume of fire and brimstone. Then, the endless ranks of the Imperial army emerged from the dust cloud. Cavalry, their lances lowered, charged forward in a thunderous wave of steel. Behind them marched the infantry, a sea of iron and flesh, their faces hidden behind grotesque masks of war. The invaders struck with the fury of a tempest. Pegasus riders, their lances tipped with fire, rained down death from above. Villages burned, the screams of their inhabitants swallowed by the roar of battle. Siege towers, lumbering behemoths of wood and iron, crawled towards the walls of Eldoria's cities. Their rams, each one a battering ram of destruction, slammed against the gates, the sound echoing like the hammer blows of some infernal god. The very earth seemed to shake beneath the weight of the assault. The air grew thick with the stench of blood and fear, a noxious cocktail that clung to the back of every throat. But the defenders of Eldoria were not about to yield their homeland without a fight. Archers, their faces grim, unleashed a storm of arrows that blotted out the sky. Catapults hurled boulders the size of houses, crushing enemy formations into dust. The walls of Eldorian cities were high, their defenses formidable, but it was the spirit of the defenders that truly made them impregnable. They fought with the courage born of desperation, the ferocity of wolves defending their den. Section 5. Fury Unleashed. The battle raged for hours, a maelstrom of steel and fury. The air was filled with the clang of swords on shields, the screams of the dying, and the thunderous roar of collapsing masonry. Pegasus riders clashed with Eldorian griffin riders in the skies, their screams lost in the clouds. War elephants met their match in the form of Eldorian war bears, their roars shaking the very foundations of the world. Blood flowed like water, staining the ground crimson. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a grim testament to the ferocity of the fighting. Section 6. Dance of Death Beneath the Crimson Sky. The sun reached its zenith, a malevolent eye gazing down upon the carnage. Still, the battle raged, neither side willing to give an inch. The sky itself seemed to weep, rain mingling with blood to create a gruesome slurry beneath their feet. Every inch of ground was contested, every victory hard won. Men fought with the strength of 10, fueled by a potent mix of fear and adrenaline. They were no longer soldiers but instruments of death, their humanity lost in the whirlwind of violence. Section 7. A king's resolve, a soldier's courage. King Alaric, his armor now dented and splattered with gore, fought with the fury of a demon possessed. His blade, a blur of silver, cut down all who stood before him. He was an inspiration to his men, a beacon of hope in the midst of the storm. But even the bravest hearts can be broken. For every enemy soldier that fell, another seemed to take his place. The Imperial army was relentless, their numbers, seemingly, endless. Section 8. Twilight of Heroes. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the charnel house that was once a battlefield, a sense of despair began to settle over the defenders. Their losses were staggering, their strength waning. Still they fought on, driven by a primal need to survive, to protect their homes and loved ones. But the tide of battle had turned. The invaders, sensing victory, fought with renewed vigor, their cries of triumph echoing across the blood-soaked plains. Section 9. An empire trembles. Night fell, a shroud of darkness that hid the horrors of the battlefield. The sounds of battle, once deafening, faded to a low rumble, punctuated by the occasional scream or the clash of steel. The outcome of the battle hung in the balance. The Empire had struck a mighty blow, but the spirit of Eldoria was not so easily broken. The cost of victory for both sides had been high, but one thing was certain: the world would never be the same.